Hey there, BookTube. Noah. Everyone who reads and must converses the channel. This will serve as a final uh, video on Alan Moore's Jerusalem. This book, this book is, this book is magical. This book is completely in a whole world of its own, as far as literature and what it does, what its scope is. You can compare it to certain things, but I would say that the only kind of real comparisons that you can make, there's aspects of it that you can compare to things like Ulysses, for example, James Joyce Ulysses, sure. Finnegan's Wake, a host of postmodern books, because it uses so many different literary devices, especially in the third part here, Vernall's Inquest. But the only thing as far as scope and what this does and what it kind of tries to do, and I think it succeeds, is William Blake's Jerusalem, which is probably closer to what Alan Moore was kind of going for. Just some the 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 epicness of the scope of this work as a whole, all three parts, or Vala and the Four Zoas, an unpublished work by William Blake that the scope is unbelievable. I mean, it's the entire reality itself. So in Vernall's Inquest here, we're finishing up what Alan Moore has done with part one and part two. I'll have those linked in the description box. I have a playlist that'll just have them all together. So if you haven't seen the first two parts, go ahead and hit that first. But in Vernall's Inquest, each part of this is a different narrative style. And what I mean by that is there is one chapter that is a play. There's one chapter that is a poem. There's one chapter that is a stream of consciousness, ramblings of the inner mind of a character. There's one chapter that is in its own language that reads very much like Finnegan's Wake, where you're so disoriented because you can read this thing, but the words that are on the page are not the words that you're reading in your experience. They're different words. They're amalgamations of words. They're non-words, but you're able to read this thing. It's amazing. Alan Moore is ultimately a storyteller of the highest order, and the kind of flex that this is in a storytelling, from a storytelling standpoint, is unbelievable. I mean, there's nothing else like it. It is ultimately completely unexpected. You will never you will never guess what is coming and how this thing is working out and what it is that Alan Moore is doing here. You have to just experience it for itself. So in Vernall's Inquest here, it starts off with a chapter from the builders, from the perspective of a builder. Now, a builder, these are the angles. This is the kind of being that is a kind of a one of four, that the four are kind of are overseers of the entire creation and making sure things work out the way that they do. And they do it by building things, structures, but also they do it by playing games. The game they play is called trilliards. It is like a snooker, like pool billiards, and the different pockets on the pool, on the table there, are the different, a castle, a skull, a cross, and a phallus. In Vernall's Inquest here, when it opens up and you get this short chapter from the perspective of the builder, you're getting a perspective from right where you want to be in eternity itself. somebody who understands, a being that understands what the reality is and what it consists of, and you get this kind of framing for the entire part, and it's wonderful. It's amazing, actually, and all are justified in just by virtue of being who they are. They are justified. All human beings, all of the reality, the builders themselves, the devils, the ghosts, the rough sleepers, all of it. They're all justified because, as it says, we're all nested in the higher realms. So like it's like, the third borough, which is the Northampton, the first book that we've come into contact with. The first borough folds up into the second, and the second borough is eternity, is man soul, the whole second part of the book. And then this third part, it becomes something. I'll try to describe it. Okay. The second chapter is when we really jump into what Alan Moore's kind of doing with the third book here, and it's a perspective from Alma. Alma, a chapter from Alma's perspective. Alma is the artist that's putting on the exhibition. That is what this whole thing is hinging around. Michael's sister, and she is a big, kind of ugly, imposing figure, very brash, in your face, and she is a local celebrity. She is very well off. She is a very accomplished artist, and she is a local celebrity. She is hyper aware, very interested in history, very interested in mythology of all kinds, art, science, occult, correspondence, tarot, all these kind of things, and filtering all of her experience through herself, and marrying the inner and the outer. And so, in a way, what she does, how she goes through her life in this chapter, which is just the day before the exhibition, you just follow her. And it turns out to be another walk through Northampton. You walk with her and you go with her throughout her day. Shows you how Alan Moore lives his life, I think, in a big way. That he himself is this, he's a local celebrity, but people don't approach him. If you know what Alan Moore looks like, he's not doesn't look like a very approachable guy anyways, and but when it comes down to it, he is very keenly aware. He's hyper aware of his surroundings, of people. He's very observant all the time, and always thinking about the history and why things are the way that they are, what's going on outside, and marrying that with his inner life and all that kind of thing. The third chapter is a chapter from the perspective of Lucia Joyce. Lucia Joyce is James Joyce's daughter. And anybody who knows James Joyce and reads some of James Joyce's stuff, you might still say, well, who's Lucia Joyce? Right? Like, who, what, James Joyce had a daughter? What? Like, why is it like this? Because Lucia Joyce is a very tragic figure who had her end in a mental institution called St. Anthony's Hospital in Northampton. She has been, kind of relegated to the fringes of the story of her family, and it's very tragic. But we follow her, and that's the chapter that's written in this Finnegan's Wake invented language style that is unbelievably crazy. Like, you feel crazy when you're reading it. And I think it just gets crazier and crazier as you go through this chapter, that by the end of it, there's not even any real words on this page. And you're just able to get it, and you're reading it, and you see this story, and you're following it. And then but when you really look, you take a, kind of a little step back and look at the page, you're like, wait, it doesn't say any of that stuff. It doesn't say what it is that I'm reading here. It is insane. And Alan Moore is doing that all on purpose, I mean, he's putting you in this place where you are, where the characters kind of are, making you part of this story, that these people are all kind of aspects of every man. It's wild. And Lucia Joyce is hypersexed. She is um, caught up in this kind of 60s culture, counterculture, maybe, but avant garde for sure. And Alice in Wonderland makes multiple references to that kind of stuff, this kind of topsy turvy world where the absurdity and nonsense is part of what is, what is in her normal experience. The Beatles, Dusty Springfield. She hooks up with Dusty Springfield, actually. She actually hooks up with one of the Rough Sleepers, an old poet named John Clare. And these kind of things just happen. And it's just scene after scene. She goes on this trek, and she is just out in a dream world, in a fantasy land. It's wild. It's almost like a kind of a real messed up Alice in Wonderland or something like that. It's done very, very well. It is so enjoyable. I cannot wait to reread this book, to tell you the truth. It There's such departures in this third part, though. There's a exploration through this kind of anarchist. One of the chapters is from the perspective of an anarchist named Roman Thompson. He's violent, he's erratic, he's unpredictable, and there's an exploration of criminal activity and socio-political, uh, you know, money and relationship with that kind of thing, and these kind of criminal activity in the streets, but also like a criminal activity in the government buildings, and how this person is navigating all that. He is in those, all that is his world that he lives in. And is he justified for thinking the way that he is and stuff? And as I said, the framing of this is that all are justified. Well, he's an anarchist, like a complete anarchist. No government, wants to see everything burn. And it's wild how his kind of thing drives home that poverty, in our current system, poverty is essential for wealth. People don't have money without other people being impoverished. And that money itself goes from a line from actual being an actual thing, like barter system, you have a good or something that you're giving, to figurative, then to abstract. And that's when, these kind of money becomes coinage, and it's a physical metal that has worth and value based on its weight and all that kind of stuff. And then to just a piece of paper that has a printing on it that is now the note that you use to signify a certain amount. And then completely to ultimately surreal. It's completely surreal. And that's where we're at now, of course, with this digital money, where, there's not even, you don't even need to print any money anymore. The government doesn't need to print money. It can be put in a computer somewhere and created in that kind of way. So there's another chapter that is from the perspective of Henry, also named Black Charlie, and that is a wonderful, very, very human, heartfelt chapter that really drives home desire and love, and what it means to be a human being in this world, and how we long for connection, and how beautiful it is when that connection is made, and if two people can have that connection and foster that through their life and live their life together, how wonderful and fulfilling that kind of thing is. And it's one of the best, and I will say that in this part 3, Vernall's Inquest, that we are in all the worlds, okay? There's the boroughs, the real world of the town, but also Mansoul, where it's the eternal worlds, and the dreams, the death scene, where all the rough sleepers are. It's all happening at once. It's all you see. it's so hard to describe. You just have to you just have to experience it. And what really drives it home is the next part, where we have a chapter from the perspective of Snowy Vernall. Snowy Vernall was one of the Vernalls that is probably the most realized Vernall. Like, he realizes eternity in his life and operates as everybody thinks that he's just a crazy person, for sure. But he sees the real structure of reality as this multi-dimensional. Time isn't linear. Time is all happening. Nothing is ever lost because it's always in eternity. And that ultimately we are just, here to do what we have to do. And he is in eternity running through time with the baby May, the 18-month-old baby Vernall who died at 18 months. The most beautiful little baby in the world. So it's this old man holding this baby on his shoulders, and they're both, in eternity, they're both dead. But are they really? I mean, does dead or alive have much of a meaning in this kind of way? Because what's the difference? It's only this life stream of between being born and dying here in this world that is the life, what we call life. And all the other time of this eternal being is still experience, right? So he's running through time. His whole thing is he wants to find the limit. And the limit of what? Well, the limit of himself. And through his running through time up in Mansoul, he goes billions and billions of years into the future. And him and May are running through that. And at times he's having these thoughts and remembering his life. We have a whole series of vignettes throughout his chapter where he's remembering different points in his life, and we get his life from his own perspective in that kind of way. And it's beautiful because he's experiencing his life and knowing that he's also running through eternity with baby May on his shoulders. But he's actually in those times, which time is actually happening and which time is a remembrance. It doesn't make sense to try to make that distinction. It is happening, and it will always be happening in this kind of way. So Alan Moore breaks down time in a linear fashion, from a linear fashion to just a now and an eternity. There is an eternal time that has it all, that is always present and puts you there, and you're able to actually understand it and be in that, in this work. That's why I say, you have to read this book to understand what I'm talking about there. But it is a euphoric experience. It is complete. There's complete, just where you're just yes, and you are just showered by the wonderful, huge ideas, beautiful, amazing literature of what this is and what it does. It blows your mind, for sure. The next chapter is the chapter on is the stream of consciousness chapter, where you're just in the mind of this government official, and there's all this self-doubt, making excuses, defensiveness, and you get a sense of that this person is going to be a rough sleeper. He's not somebody who is accepting and okay with what he's done and with his decisions and all this kind of thing. There is a chapter of a noir, and then there is actually a whole chapter that is like a movie, that is set up like movie montages and things like that. That's the second to last chapter. Now, I don't want to go and just bust out spoilers, But I will say that the end of this book is completely satisfying. It's amazing. And it gives you what you need, but you will never expect how this thing is going. You can never guess. The imagination and the creativity of this book is so high level that you will never guess what is coming, and is something that you can endlessly reread. The interconnectivity between characters in this is unbelievable. There is not a character that you're worried about, that you think of what is that you don't get it from their perspective. That character's perspective. You relive scenes. Another way that Alan Moore is showing that this time is not a linear thing, and it doesn't matter. It's not something that is sequential. Is by you revisiting scenes and reliving scenes from other perspectives, in ways that you don't expect. It's an amazing thing. So, but what is shown, especially through the play, there's a there's a scene written from the literary device of like a play, and it's done very, very well, where they're all these rough sleepers, none of them know that they're dead. They're all talking, and they're all like in their own private purgatory, because that is the kind of thing. You just get stuck in a loop. These rough sleepers, these ghosts, are just stuck in a loop of experience, and they don't have any perception of anything that's outside of their private hell. So they're on the steps of this church, and some of the rough sleepers can see and talk to each other, and some of them can't. But in this is a beautiful exploration of the mechanics of individual purgatory, what the mind does. And it comes down to like forgiveness of self and other. Can you forgive others for their misunderstandings, for their wrong decisions, for their meanness, for anything? You have to be able to forgive. And also judgments. Thinking you're right, thinking you have to do this. You make certain judgments in your life, and are you able to open your hand, open yourself to saying, I was wrong. That wasn't essential. That was a bad decision that I made, or a decision that was not essential, but I did it anyways, and it was what I thought was best at the time, sure, but I can grow. Can you grow past this kind of thing? And it all comes down to acceptance. A big theme in Jerusalem is acceptance, not acceptance, of good or bad. Like I say, you have to get past labels and trying to pin things down on what is right or what is wrong, and somebody is a bad person or somebody is a good person, because it's all about accepting that people are who they are, and they are on a journey as well. They are not stuck where they are. They do not stay being what they are without growing. Everybody is on a journey. Everybody is growing. You have to allow for that, and accept that there are people that are, lack of a better word, evil, that are doing evil things, that are causing harm and this kind of stuff. And you have to accept that is part of their journey and part of yours for coming into it, experience with it. Another what shows this very much is Marla. Marla is a wonderful character that drives home a lot of ideas. And when you first meet Marla, she is a very, very sad character, and you would never care about Marla. 99% of the time, by 99.9% of people that are watching this video, you would not care about Marla if you passed her on the street. You would look the other way. You would not want to make eye contact, and you would probably judge her. And this person becomes somebody that your heart is broken, completely broken, shattered, and all the life squeezed out of it, hurting for this being. It is so hardcore. So there's a lot of hardcore. There's a lot of darkness in Jerusalem, and I want to let that be known for sure. But it is for a reason, and it is to show our complacency, and that we are making judgments, even if you are a very open person and see yourself as somebody who, is accepting of others and accepting of the world. At least that it is what it is, and you can accept that you yourself are doing the best you can or whatever. That you're a human being just like everybody else, and we're all making judgments. And it Alan Moore hits you with these kind of things that I'm talking about with sledgehammer blows. It's amazing. What is it? How it's put is that there is like a grand mythology of loss that is being put forth in Jerusalem, with the world, with the first boroughs, and the world and time is all loss. But there is the eternity where nothing is lost. Everything is always there. And when there's horrible things, can you accept them? Are you constantly trying to run from them or fight against it, and these kind of things? And that's what causes the rough sleepers. There's loss of self, loss of loved ones, and loss of place. The boroughs itself is lost. We go through a lot of history of the boroughs, and the boroughs will never be what the boroughs was ever again. But it doesn't have to be, because what once was always will be, always is. One of the things that's driven home with this, and I'll leave Jerusalem with this point right here, because this is what came up to me, and I think that Alan Moore was driving this home with this story, is that when one person is hurt, everybody is harmed by that. When one person is hurt, everybody is harmed. And when one person is helped, all people are healed by that. Every act of kindness, every helping of another person is something that heals humanity and heals the human spirit. And every time that there is a meanness and that people are harmed, that hurts humanity as a whole, and basically, hurts your own inner life, your own inner spirit. So, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's one of my favorite books that I've ever read in my life. Might be, definitely top 10, maybe top 5, maybe number 1. Like, it is amazing. So, thank you for being along with me for the Jerusalem journey. I will be making this journey over and over and over again in my life. It is an amazing experience. So, if you think that you're interested in it, check it out. If you've read it and you liked it, drop me a line. Let me know. Let me know what you think about it. If you didn't like it, let me know what you think about it. And I'm sure we have a lot to talk about. Catch you on the next one, BookTube. Bye-bye.